join into the webinar. Before we kind of kick off, I hope everybody who has joined so far is well. We'll probably start the actual webinar within the next sort of minute or two. Give it another minute for people to join. Right, I can see the numbers have gone up. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar hosted by CHIC. My name is Luke Hurd. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for CHIC. Today, we're looking at sort of technology and how technology can be used to inform the sector. As a consortia operating within the housing sector, I view sort of consortia as not just offering compliant procurement routes to market and leveraging our members' spend to ensure we deliver value for money. We should also be supporting the sector in terms of operational collaboration with the marketplace, and also looking at the technology that exists to drive efficiencies through what we do and how we deliver our services to our residents. So today we're going to be looking at some technology around materials and how materials are managed within the sector, both in terms of platform and in terms of storage. I'm joined by a panel of experts in this field who are going to talk through the various different solutions that are available and give explanations behind them. If you have any questions, please use the chat, which is available to post your questions. I will field the questions and we will go into a Q&A at the end of the presentations, and we'll try and stick to the full hour if we can. So I'd like to thank the panelists for joining me today. I'll introduce them individually as we come to their sessions. So I'm going to start with Martin Radbourne from CHIC, who's going to explain our comms system. So I will hand over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Luke. So, as Luke said, my name is Martin Radbourne. I'm the Business Intelligence Manager at CHIC, and today I'm going to kind of have a brief overview of what the comms system is, what kind of prompted its development, and what its benefits are from a contractor, supplier, and member standpoint. So, for anyone that isn't already familiar with CHIC, CHIC as a business was founded on the idea that purchasing materials and labour separately can actually reduce costs, and this heavily influenced our development of the comms system. So the overarching purpose behind comms is it should be a one-stop shop effectively for contractors, suppliers and members to manage their orders and programme of works. So we work with our members when they have a materials contract with us to create a bespoke catalogue for the materials that they want to use. And then this price then reflects the value that we as a consortia can bring through volume purchasing. As part of the built-in security of comms, these prices are fixed in the background. So there's no discrepancies then between the price that's agreed and the price that is charged at the point of ordering, because it's all fixed. As well as benefiting our members, we also design comms to benefit the contractor as well. So the ordering process is simple and streamlined. The user interface should be familiar to anybody that knows or has done online shopping before in the past. And as part of this streamlining, we were looking at how to make the ordering process simpler for contractors. One of the key features of comms is the ability to order from multiple suppliers simultaneously. So the contractor makes a single order through comms, and they're able to select materials from all suppliers that the member has chosen to use, and then the system itself splits the order out So the contractor makes one order, and then the system splits that out so that each supplier gets the order for the materials that have been ordered exclusively from them. This means that the delivery date for all materials is based on the agreed SLA of all the suppliers that have been ordered from, so the materials should be delivered all on the same day. These SLAs are usually based on the agreed lead and manufacture times with the suppliers, so that this ensures that the materials can be delivered in a reasonable time and consistently. We do all know, though, emergencies happen. The contractors are able to order materials for next day collection, but then they have to pick that up from a branch of their choosing, so they can still have that facility. A key driving feature behind the development of comms was the idea around controlling costs. So I mentioned previously that catalogs can be managed to ensure that only approved materials can be ordered at the agreed prices, but comms can also help members with the planning element of their program of works. So as you can see here, we've got budgets that are set not at a program level, but can be tailored down to the individual properties or further based on the granularity of the UPRN that the specific member uses. This allows the member to set a budget for each work element within a property that can be impacted by things like property size, property type, and even their geographic location. We also develop comms to have security as an underlying theme throughout the system with several key elements. So on the previous slide, I show you how budgets can be set for each work stream within a property. These budgets can be used to set restrictions on order sizes that the contractor can make. For instance, you can see here in the overage image, a program can have an overage of, say, 5 or 10% or 0, if that's wanted, which means that the contractor has that much leeway against the property budget when they're making an order. Orders exceeding this leeway can still go through, but require approval from the member, keeping them in control of the extra incurred costs. Comms can also limit specific products. For instance, boilers, you typically only want one per property, so you can have those flagged as unique items, so you can only add one to an order, or require that specific products can always require approval, regardless of the overall order value. So you're allowing contractors a bit of flexibility in what they can order, but only in certain circumstances if there's things that should only be used rarely. All of these features that I've mentioned are customizable, so they can be switched on or off depending on what the member wants to use for their programs. As part of program setup, contractors are assigned to specific work streams. For instance, you can have one contractor doing your heating installs and another contractor doing your roofing, and neither would see properties to order that aren't of the work stream that they're assigned to. This applies to products as well. So a product can be applied to one or more work streams, but if a contractor is doing heating installs, they won't see any products to purchase that are not assigned to the heating program. So there's a lot of control there and simplicity for the contractor in that they know that all of the goods they can see are relevant to what they're going to be doing. Behind and underpinning all of that is a complete audit record for every order. When it was placed, how it moves through the individual life cycle stages and when, and then finally when it was invoiced and what invoice it was raised on. Speaking of invoicing, this is something that is going to be touched on by one of the subsequent panelists in terms of the benefits. But comms has a process for automated invoicing at a date of the member's choosing each month. What happens is all processed orders are combined into a single invoice per supplier and per program, drastically cutting down the number of invoices that members need to process each month. These invoices are also customizable to meet any requirements that the member might have in terms of their finance and approval systems, things like that. One of the best things about having all this data in one location is it allows us to use the data to provide insights as to what's been going on. So you can see here on the screen, we have a breakdown of how many orders properties had. This should ideally be one. You should only really realistically need to make one order per property in an ideal world, and how the overall total of the orders compares to the budget set for the property and work stream. So you can see here we have the majority of properties have a single order and are around the 100% of budget mark, which is excellent. But you can also see that there are a few properties that are significantly over or under the budget in terms of their overall order value and have required multiple orders to get to the completed stage. So this highlights key interest points that can be looked at and raises questions that can be considered for planning future budgets. So why did the top property have 4 orders, for instance? You could see that overall the bathroom spend typically is higher than 100% and the kitchen spend is generally lower than 100%. So prompts those questions of when we're doing our budgets next year, we can lower our budget for kitchens based on what we're seeing here. We probably need to allocate more budget to bathrooms based on what we were expecting to spend. So using this data provides the insights that can lead to better, more accurate planning in the future, as well as a point for performance improvement management from a contractor perspective. If they're ordering too many times, then that could imply that, you know, something's going wrong. Either they're not surveying the properties well enough, or they're just making mistakes when they're ordering, being careless, things like that. Gives you the insight to see where you need to put your attention specifically at certain touch points. So I'm just going to give you a quick look at an interactive dashboard that we developed for comms. So these are hosted within the system. They're refreshed several times a day, so they're always relatively up to date. The specification for these comes directly from the member. So we work with them to design a dashboard based around A, the data that we collect, and B, what they want to see from it. So you can see that we've got a fairly simple dashboard here showing 2 different suppliers, kitchens and bathrooms. They're designed to be quite interactive. So you've got multiple pages, one specifically for kitchens. You can kind of mess around with the dates if you only want to see specific date groups. If you only wanted to see what you'd spent on kitchens in 3-bedroom houses, for instance, you can see that when all the orders were made, for instance. And it just provides an in-depth look that really allows you to drill down into the information to see whatever it is that you're after, effectively. Okay, so that comes to an end for my little session. Thank you very much for listening. If anybody is interested in having a more detailed look at comms, my contact information is there. Feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will hand back to Luke.
Thank you very much, Martin. Interesting sort of overview there of the comm system and looking at how it was developed and what it means in terms of being able to support both our members and our contractors in their materials ordering for sort of category 1 materials. To follow on from that, I'm going to hand over to Darren Walker, who's going to explain from a more practical side actually how comms has been implemented with a housing association and our members and what that has meant for them in terms of efficiencies that they've gained. So Darren, I will hand over to you.
Thank you. For those that don't know me, I'm Darren Walker, the supply chain manager for Efficiency North, and I'll be doing my presentation will be from our perspective as the agents who deal with the clients and the suppliers, and also Burnsley Homes, who are one of the end users of the CHIC system. They've given me feedback. Unfortunately, nobody from them is available to present, so I've amalgamated their comments into my my presentation. So if you just bear with me a second while I load it up. Hopefully everybody can see that. Unfortunately, it doesn't have all the whistles and bells of the other ones, but hopefully it'll sum up adequately. Burnsley Homes, this is from their Burnsley Homes perspective. They find it easy to use. They set up their projects prior to going live, and it's not up to their contractor to do anything, so they can control it, and it's not left to any nuances or tweaking by the contractor. It allows them to download the catalogue of contractors to use, avoids deviation, misuse, misunderstandings of price. It's all clear. Prices are locked and they're transparent. Budgets are transparent, so they can preset overspend if required, and it can be locked. So once it gets to that, alarm bells go flashing and stops it just spiraling out of control. There's goods received notes. Again, it's all to do with tracking and monitoring what's being spent and where, and it's also visibility to the landlord, who are Burnsley Homes, so that they know exactly what is going on. The benefits of it: previously, before they started using the CHIC system, there were lots of human error, lots of variances on cost and visibility. So between 85 and 90% of invoices were queries, which obviously is someone within Burnsley Homes has to deal with those, and that's a massive resource when the CHIC system does it all. And so now any issues just tend to be down to address issues, which are human input errors, which are always going to happen, whether you do it internally or with CHIC. But it's reduced the errors drastically, and it's also got better communication with the contractors, because it's just a single line of contact, and you're not having to deal with lots of different stakeholders. And the main comment from their contract, which is called HUG, it's easy to use and it's user friendly, easy to pick up addresses, pick parts and place orders. All they have to do is look on the catalogue, pick a number, press on that item, put the quantity in against an address, and it's sorted. And it's simple to get new parts added and new addresses. And also another comment is boiler systems. Previously, it was a case of they'd have to have their own kit list and pick the individual items, but they can preset the packs on the system. So they just have to, they know what's in the pack. They just click on that and it comes automatically. But again, it's like any system. I think the main issue is the 7 Ps. If they don't plan forwards and get things done in advance, expecting parts to be on the shelf isn't always feasible, because some boilers might take 7 days to come in. So they have to actually think ahead, and if they know it's a specialist item and it's not going to be on the shelf, the person doing the order has to order in advance. Otherwise they have to wait, and it can be frustrating. But that's the same whichever system you use. And initially there was subcontractor resistance, as it takes away their control, because they like to think, well, I actually really prefer this item, or I'd much rather use this. But what they choose might not be standard, it may be more expensive, it might take longer lead time. So it just takes away their independence, but they soon get used to it, and any feeling of being micromanaged is taken away eventually, because they get used to it and they think, oh well, they accept it. But that's the same with anyone, they always accept change eventually. From that, now it's on to my perspective from EN, Efficiency North. It's easier to manage schemes for multiple members. All we have to do is utilize the CHIC reporting procedures, and it gives us total transparency. We can go into granular detail, see what's been spent, where, and by whom. If there's any issues with orders, it's quickly resolved, because we know what the order numbers are and we can go down the right avenues. Prices can be updated en masse. All we have to do is just, when we get any increases periodically, we can just go in there and update them, and it covers all the prices, not just, we'd have to go in and say, oh well, we got that client one, we have to change their prices on the catalogue, and client 2, etc. It like pro forma documentation, it reduces that, because it's all set and bespoke in the system. They don't have to change paperwork and things like that. It's quick because it's browser based. If there's no addresses, it's easy to add them onto the system, and invoices can be generated automatically and sent to both client and supplier on set dates. So obviously, if you've got your own system for invoicing and you've got your own dates that you need them, then it's easier to preset those. Again, initial client resistance as systems have to interface. This can take time, but it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain, and that's always has to be taken into consideration. Any subcontractors that you're actually using, they have to understand the system as well. But there is training available, and it's very thorough and comprehensive, so that's easily sorted out. But there is one big issue that does frequently arise, and that's duplicated addresses. That each property is given a UPRN, which is a unique property reference number, but sometimes human error, people go in, they don't search the system fully, and they'll just put the same address in, and it'll be given another UPRN number, which can cause confusion if they start ordering some items against one UPRN number and someone else orders it against another. But as soon as it's identified, it's easier to clean up the system and sort it out. But sometimes it's human error. You put in a slight extra space in an address and it doesn't pick it up as a duplication. And that seems to be it. There was going to be a last slide of any questions, but those are all safe for the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Darren. It's a very good sort of overview of operationally how IT and technology and certainly the common system can be used to sort of drive efficiencies in materials ordering. Quite interesting that no matter how good a technology can be, it can always come down to human error, and what you input is kind of what you get out. You can design as much as you like to try and limit that, but it does always happen. So I'm going to come over now to Steve Nilsson, who is one of our supply chain partners from Yes Electrical, who is going to talk about their solutions for managing reactive repairs materials out on site. I'll hand over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Luke. So my name's Steve Nelson. I work for Yes Electrical, and I lead a department within the business called Special Projects. Part of our Special Projects division is Smart Storage Solutions, which I'm hopefully going to share with you today. Okay, so Smart Storage Solutions is a new access-controlled unmanned storeroom designed to successfully manage and control the usage of consignment stock or stock at the heart of our customers' businesses. What you're looking at on screen is one of our pods that's been deployed inside a container. These are accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The purpose of the smart store would be to keep track of stock, improve productivity, lower fuel usage and labour on unnecessary travel, improve compliance, auto-replenish, improve first fix time rates, and manage operative access. As the Smart Store is a computerised system, it allows us to know who's entered the pod, what's been removed from the pod, where it happened, and when it happened. We're really fortunate at Yes to have a really good quality IT team within the business. Smart Store is not a third-party product. It's been built from the ground upwards. We're really lucky to have infrastructure, coders, developers, build within the and app developers within the organization, and bringing the whole team together has allowed us to build this product. We have many ways of accessing the Smart Store. The main way is through the Yes Customer app, which will allow operatives to download a unique key that would grant them access. If the app is not to be used, we have other ways in which people can enter, which is using 1D and 2D access codes into the system. Safety is really paramount when deploying a Smart Store, whether it's in a container or somebody's own building. So we have camera system functioning. So we have a camera system within inside the pod, and then we have 2 camera systems filming inside the back of the pod, and they're filming live. Safety is huge, so we have non-activity timers inside the stores. If an operative was to enter a store and after 12 minutes they weren't to activate any of the doors, we would presume something potentially could be wrong. At 15 minutes, we presume something is wrong, and then we activate the man down alarm, which would activate the siren on the front of the pod. It would send text and email notifications to the key holder on site, and also it would release the front door and middle door as a fail-safe. We have a break glass unit that sits inside it as well, inside the pod and the store, and an operative can actually draw attention to themselves just by pressing the button on the break glass unit, and the same protocol will kick in. Lastly, we have a fail-safe. So on the 2 doors that allow you to enter the storeroom, we have a dome cap over a thumb turn. You literally just break the thumb turn off, turn the thumb turn, and you can step out. But the important thing here is all these 3 processes evidence that something may have been taken out of the pod without using the system correctly. We have smoke detection in there and emergency lighting. The system itself is RFID. So inside our pod, we have 4 RFID scanners. And when goods come through, the pod will scan the room, pick up the RFID scanner tags, and then pair it to the item that's already been assigned. As an engineer or operative leaves the smart store, they will receive a notification on their device showing them exactly what they've removed from the store. If we're deploying a smart store in a container, we have 2 options. We have a 20-foot and a 40-foot. We don't use used shipping containers. The life expectancy with the used shipping containers in the market can be anything from 10 to 15, 20 years even. So all the containers that we deploy are one trip. As soon as they arrive in the country, we buy them. We then have them sprayed in a RAL 7004, and then we have them ply lined and insulated in our workshop in Skipton. The reason why we do this is to manage heat. We at the end of the day, the container is holding stock and product in the back, and we need to protect it from extreme temperatures, plus and minus. So these 2 processes help towards managing that heat. The screen you're looking at now in the middle is where it says passes and stock. If you look under stock, you'll see container stock. An operative or anybody in the office can physically open the app up and look live to see what stock is sat inside that container before even attempting to go remove stock. The one above it where it says passes, they press that, and that will start the process of downloading the unique QR code. The screen on the right is where the operative would put an order number in. So this can be an order number or a reference number, however you want to do your processing. At this point, we know who's the order number. We know the engineer that's entered the store, potentially the trade, the pod and where it's located, and what goods have been removed from it. We can also add additional fields, whether it's a contract number, a vehicle registration number, or even work with order masks. It's not a problem at all. The pod itself, as I mentioned earlier, is software. So we're collecting raw data on every process, and this data can be delivered back in a multitude of ways. So we can base it on days, products that have been taken out during that particular day. We can do it via operative. We can do it by product or supplier. So depending on how this information needs feeding back, we can do this on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And also, we're also able to supply a daily, weekly, or monthly report to whoever requires the information of exactly what's going on inside the store. So if we're working to plus or minus on a replen, then we can supply this information so you can see exactly on a daily basis, if required, what's actually sat in the store from an administration perspective. What I've done here is I've loaded up a video. This is one of our first units that we developed, and right at the end you'll see the current version. And I'll talk through the video as it's playing along and just explain what you're actually looking at. So this is one of our units. That's a demo unit up at our head office in Normanton. So this is one that's been deployed inside a 40-foot container. So the pod itself sits at the front. An engineer here, John, is downloading the unique QR code, which he's now going to present to the pod. What happens now is the front door is being released and allows John to step in. The actual pod is talking to John as he's using it. You just can't hear it in this presentation. So now what's happened is the front door is now locked and the rear door has now been released, which allows John to step inside the storeroom. In here, this is, as you can see, it's ply lined. It's fully racked out. And all these goods that John's selecting here have already been paired at the branch with an RFID tag. So that RFID tag knows that it's a Luxner downlight or a batten fitted. So John has now selected the items he wants. He can step in and out of the pod as often as he wants and load the pod up as much as he wants. And once he's completed, he'll press this green button and it will now scan the room and look for all the RFID tags that are in that particular room with him. This process takes 15 seconds. We just speeded it up a little bit. Once the 15 seconds is done, it releases the front door, locks the back door, and allows John to step out and leave. What we've done here is we've just opened the pod up and turned it offline so you can see what's actually happening. So on the external, we have a screen, which is advising if there's an operative inside it or if their access token has not worked. There's 4 RFID antennae in the room, 2 in the ceiling, 2 on the walls. And on the internal, there's a screen as well, which is advising the process too. So the scanning or the rear doors are open or a door's not closed. And there's one of the cameras. On the rear of the pod, we have an emergency button. If for any reason 2 engineers was to step into, or operative was to step into the unit and one was to leave without the other, the one that was remaining can press the green button. It will release the door. It will step into the pod. It will scan the room and release them as well. So no point should anybody ever get caught inside the unit. And again, we have the brake glass and the thumb turn here. So this is the latest version. This is the one that we would be physically deploying. We've made a few changes through R&D. We've made the pod a lot bigger. You can see it's a lot wider. It's a lot brighter. It's a lot more pleasant to be in. And there's a lot more other finer details that have gone in. Ultimately, the pod is a Faraday cage. So fine-tuning the RFID scanning and making it as efficient as possible has been a big project for us. So this could also be an access into a storeroom rather than into a container. As long as the operative has to step through the pod to get to the store, these could be deployed anywhere. And then again, it leaves. Really proud this year as well. We've been nominated with the Smart Storage Solution at the IWF. We've made the finals within the product and service development category as well. So there's a lot of technology here, a lot of improvements to the way in which we've developed the product and brought it to market. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm going to ask all the panelists just to rejoin the session if they may. And thank you all for sort of giving a very good overview there of how technology can be used both to manage sort of long planned programs in terms of materials ordering and management, and also how we can use technology to ensure that our storage and use of materials is more efficient and effective. I'd like to welcome Nikki Bennett as well, who has joined the panel, although she hasn't done any presenting from Yes Electrical. She will be here to help field any sort of Q&A that we've received. There were a few questions that I've sort of had posed to me in advance. I am conscious that we haven't had any questions posed by the current delegates. So please, again, if anybody has any questions they would like to ask the panelists, if you just type it into the Q&A and I can pick it up as part of this session. So the first question is probably to sort of Yes Electrical. You talked there a lot, Steve, about the development of the smart storage solution and how you got to the sort of latest version. Can you just give us an overview of how much sort of R&D has gone into developing that and what future R&D may be going into it moving forward?
Yeah, so from an R&D perspective, the concept was actually brought to the table pre-pandemic. Following the pandemic, our IT team set about developing the way in which they could integrate it with software. So once this element was completed, we then had to turn a piece of software into a physical unit. So it's probably been in development from the end of the pandemic to today, with continuing involvement. We've deployed it in different scenarios, and using it with different customers for different purposes. And the customers that we've worked with today have been brilliant. They've allowed us to develop it, work with them, make changes, make it work for them. So we've not rushed straight to market with what we thought was the correct thing. We've looked at different sectors. We've looked at different ways in which the unit would be used. We've talked to the operatives and engineers that have used it, and then we've continued to develop and design it to make sure it works. And we've also had to, RFID in its own right can be a bit tricky, and we've really had to understand RFID and how it works. And one of the things that we're very proud of is when we first started this project, we were running at a roughly 88% accuracy rate with the unit, which sounds great, but when you actually start to plan projects and you need that accuracy, we didn't think that was good enough. So we then started to work on it and developed our own RFID scanning system, which has taken us up to 99% accuracy on the unit. So we're by running the R&D and the continuous program that we've had behind it, it's allowed us to really make the smart store bulletproof and deployable ultimately.
Thank you very much. We've had a sort of question online at the moment. So you talked there a lot about the sort of insulation that is done to the storage unit or the storage container when it's received. Can you just talk us through how weatherproof that makes the container, and can the storage solutions be deployed anywhere externally?
Yeah, so we as part of the project, to make everything fall in line, we've set up our own division over in Skipton. So we've got our own workshop there. When a container, whether it's 20-foot or 40-foot container, comes into us, we actually bring it into our building. In that building, we've got a joiner shed and joiners who work for our team. We fully ply line it, insulate it, we put in the emergency lighting, and then we slide the pod in. So the container itself is sealed. It's a fully sealed unit. And in the video, you'll have seen the frontage that goes on it as well to protect the weather. Without ply lining it and insulating it, we'll be dealing with heavy amounts of condensation. So we've eliminated that. The container that you saw in the video as well is permanently being tested with temperature. We have probes inside the pod, and we have a few inside the container as well. So we're managing the temperature. It's in direct sunlight as well. So we're monitoring the extreme temperatures, plus and minus, for it, and we have been doing for some time now. So deployable, you can seal it up on a night, so you're able to close the front doors and physically lock it, or you could leave the doors open and just leave them open 24/7. So the stock that sits in the back and the external are all sealed from each other, so there's no potential weather coming in or egress coming into the area where the stock is or the pod is.
Thank you very much. One other question to Martin around the comms system. You talked an awful lot around sort of leading times and sort of minimum times. Could you just explain in a bit more detail how that works through comms and how comms can support getting just-in-time deliveries either to individual sites, individual properties, or to a central storage location?
Yeah, of course. So on the final point, the delivery locations are customizable. When you're making an order, you can either order to be delivered directly to the site, or you can get ordered to a storage yard or a warehouse typically. The system also saves frequently used addresses. So if you're frequently ordering to the same storage location, you can just click add it all in instead of having to type it in every time. In terms of the lead times, part of the contract negotiation that we do between the member and the supplier comes around the supplier's KPIs. And one of those is based around delivery times. So for a materials distributor, CPS, Edmondson's, for instance, they'll typically have a lead time purely for delivery for, you know, getting the stock and boxing it and sending it out of around 5 working days. So if you're ordering from there, basically what comms will allow you to do is you can order for 5 working days as the earliest possible date for delivery, or any time after that, depending on how long in scope you're planning. For suppliers that do bespoke things like kitchen worktops, obviously there's a bit more of a lead time on there because of the manufacturing process, can vary from 10 to 20 working days sometimes. So the system takes that into account. It's saying, okay, well, if you're ordering from Magnet, CPS and Edmondson's all at the same time, CPS and Edmondson's both have a 5-day lead time, Magnet have a 20. So I'll say, okay, well, because Magnet is the longest, if you want all of them to be delivered at the same time, that's when you have to deliver for. So then that gives CPS and Edmondson's a lot of lead time in terms of preparing the order. Magnet also then have their agreed scope for getting the production time done, and then everything comes together at the end into one, not one delivery, but all delivered on the same day.
Hey, thank you very much. So in terms of delivering just in time to potential tenants' properties for planned programs, actually it can speed up the efficiency to ensure that full materials are delivered for a specific planned program altogether. So quite innovative in terms of how that works. Darren, could I just come over to you? Obviously, you sort of talked through your experiences both as a consortia partner and also from a member's perspective in terms of the application of comms. Are you able just to explain how long the process took from initial sort of discussion and conception through to sort of going live on site in terms of that initial planning phase and kind of getting comms set up, I suppose, to be able to deliver?
Sadly, that's before my time, so I can't actually elaborate on that, but I can certainly get back to you and speak to the people who were in at the time when it was brought in. But I mean, perhaps Martin was in on the conversation at the time as well, and could probably give you a better picture of the overview of timescales. But so unfortunately, I couldn't say
directly.
No, that's fine. Martin, are you able to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, of course. So there's 2 sides to this, effectively. In terms of the initial setting up of Efficiency North partnering with CHIC on comms, that setup itself was very, very quick. Getting a new member, new suppliers and new programs into the system, if the data is ready and available, can take a couple of days. If the data needs a bit more work, it can take a week and a half potentially. So very, very quick to get done. The longest part of the process is generally onboarding the new suppliers and contractors, training them on the system, making sure they know how it works. But the actual setup, while is front loaded to make future use very simple, it still isn't a drastic amount of work. What took a little bit longer, which was the second element of it, was Efficiency North now have their own comms website. So they were initially as a stopgap and as a quick measure brought into the CHIC comms website, which their suppliers and members used. That could be done very quickly. Obviously, developing their own site and splitting the 2 apart took a little bit longer. Maybe in terms of the development time, that took a couple of months. But by that point, they were already using comms. It was just a case of moving them over to their own bespoke website.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of the comm system and ordering out on site, you mentioned there about the use of technology, smartphones, smart devices, etc. Just how easy is it for supply chains, for contractors to place those orders?
Very. I mean, so when the system was designed, we took into account the idea that obviously it's going to be used on a variety of different devices. So while primarily it was designed for desktop use or laptops, it functions perfectly well on phones and tablets. So you can order on site if needs be. It looks the same as it would normally on live, just scaled down a little bit to work on the smaller screens, but still functions perfectly. There's no functionality that is on the desktop version that doesn't function on a mobile device.
Okay, thank you very much. Nikki, just coming back to the smart solution, the smart storage solution, how many clients have you been able to deploy the solution with at the moment? And from the use of the solution, what's the sort of data that's been shown in terms of reduction in stock, losses through consignment stock, and efficiency savings that have been gained with the members, the clients that have been using the solution?
Yeah, so Steve will probably be the best one to answer on how it's already been deployed. But with regards to the reduction in costs, it's huge, because if they have this smart storage on site, you've got, as Steve kind of alluded to in his presentation, you've got all the reduction in travel, labour time. So you've got all of the invoice queries reduced massively. So the overall cost to the end user is huge. But from a deployment and client side of things, Steve, I'll put that onto you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the units themselves, we haven't run before we could walk. So we've taken a very controlled process. So our first deployment was over in Wales, which is still there now. We've got another one going over to a creameries over there too in the coming weeks. We've got one up in Tyne Tunnel. We've got 2 demo units sat in Bristol and Nottingham and Castleford, and also the big project that we've been working on a while now is for one of the American MOD sites, where there's 3 being built as we speak to be deployed in the Midlands. So yeah, we've had some on short term. The units themselves, we don't necessarily go for a long-term contract. So we've had a few out there that have been on 4 and 5 month contracts and then lifted and brought back again to serve a purpose. But the longer contracts have been in the pipeline, which are now in the process of being deployed. So a varying scale and varying deployments that we've had in the system so far. But as you probably can appreciate as well, it's one of those where when somebody decides to deploy a 40-foot container, there's quite a timeline to do that, and it can take somewhere between sort of 2 months and 3 months in some people's cases to get them ready to go out to site to be set up and ready to go. But yeah, so new Tyne Tunnel, Wales, Bristol, Nottingham, and then the MOD sites that we're working on now.
I think just to touch on that a little bit as well, we're here to support for the full mobilisation of one of these. And as Steve had kind of mentioned before, this isn't a third-party product, so we can tailor this to suit the client's needs. So that can obviously vary the mobilisation process, but it's all bespoke to that end customer. So there's that to kind of take into consideration there. We will follow the whole process to get it set up perfectly for that customer.
Thank you very much. And you just touched on there about, obviously at the moment you've had some shorter leases and you've got some longer sites. Moving forward, is there a minimum lease time that you require to be able to deploy the various different sizes of storage container?
Yeah, so from a financial perspective, 4 months. Usually if we start to look at deploying them less, to bring a 40-foot container from Skipton to a location in the UK, with the lifting equipment and the site surveys and all that type of stuff, usually by the time that cost has been mopped up in the process, 4 months really needs to be the minimum period that we deploy one of these. Any less than that, it can be done, but it would have to be a conversation between us and the customer as to the importance of it. But yeah, so the answer would be a minimum of 4 months at this stage.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just conscious about time. We're coming towards the end of the session now. Thank you very much to all of our panelists. I think that has been a good sort of overview of 2 quite innovative sort of technologies, bespoke technologies that are available both to CHIC and Efficiency North members. So I'd like to thank you all for your time. I'd like to thank all the delegates for joining us today. If there are any further questions or conversations you wish to have after this session, please drop us a line. You can put it into this chat or email CHIC directly, and we will certainly pass on the information. So I'd like to again finally thank everybody and say have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll probably close the webinar at that point. Thank you very much.